Understanding how people think and behave in the workplace is something that absolutely fascinates me. So I use my background in organisational psychology and also coaching based on neuroscience to inform the work that I do. I'm the co-founder and head of change management at a consultancy called Revello. We work on all kinds of change management projects and we help businesses truly transform the way that they operate. Some of the projects that we've worked on recently are acquisitions, and that is where you integrate two businesses after one has purchased the other. Or divestments, which is almost the opposite. It's when one business is being separated from the parent company. And something else that we work on as well is organisational restructures and redundancies. So that's looking at the structure within the organisation. Now, the past few months have been tough for everyone. There has been so much uncertainty, many changes to the way that we live our lives. And this includes changes in the workplace. So this session today is all about how you can help your organisation thrive during change. I'll cover what change management is, what it means for you as assistants, how you can support people working from home, and also some considerations for a return to work plan. So let's start at the very beginning then. What is change management? Quite simply put, change management is about improving things. It's about looking at how things are being done today, what will be done differently tomorrow, and understanding what that gap is, and helping those that are impacted by the change to transition to that new way of working. An individual change is actually required before it can culminate in organisational change. So you actually need each person in the organisation to go through the change before you can then say that the organisation has changed or moved in that new direction. Managing change properly is really important because if it's managed poorly, if people aren't brought along on that journey, they won't know what to do and they won't understand why. And if you don't know why you're being asked to do something, you're far more likely to resist it. And this resistance to change is something that we see a lot of. That can cause delays, budget overruns, missed milestones. And so people's adoption of change will be slower if they haven't bought into the concept, if they don't understand why they're doing it. And then the business outcomes won't be achieved. So it's actually really critical to manage change in an effective way in order to see the results that the business is looking for. Now, change projects typically tend to either be a single change, which will impact a defined group, and that can be as a result of a project in that business area. So let me give you an example. It could be a restructure for the finance team. So that would be a defined group of people in just that finance area. The other type of change is a more transformational change. Now that is a significant shift in the business and may either impact a large part of the business, it could be organisation-wide and therefore impact everyone, or it could involve managing multiple strands of change at once. So again, let me give you an example. So there could be an entire reorganisation of the business after an acquisition. So after one business has purchased another, you might need to look at the structure of the entire organisation. There could be duplication, there might be roles missing. So you would want to look at the whole organisational structure to understand how it looks today and how it will look in the future. Or the other example might be integrating two businesses. So if you're looking at integrating two businesses into one, this would have multiple strands to the one program because it considers so many other aspects. It would be looking at the technology, so any new systems that might be required. There's a facilities component. Do you need to relocate buildings or can you change things at the existing office? People components, so that would be looking at the structure and also the culture of the organisation. And of course processes too, and understanding how the ways of working are different in each of the organisations. In terms of who manages the change? Well, a change team usually consists of a number of people, and the way that the roles work, they start at a change analyst, move to a change manager, change lead or a senior change manager, head of change, and a change director. And often there will also be a communications person and a training person that would be allocated or maybe part-time or sometimes full-time even, working on those change projects as well. Now, the change team, they can be consultants, so they may just come into the business, work on a project, and then leave again. They could come from a large consultancy, a smaller consultancy, they could be day rate contractors. Equally though, the business may have that internal capability depending on the size of your organisation. And then those are employees that are dedicated change roles to your business. And sometimes even there isn't the opportunity to have someone dedicated, and often leaders can be given that responsibility, and that tends to be on top of their day job. So what do change managers actually do then? Well, the change team works really closely with the Program Management Office, the PMO, that might be an acronym you've heard before. And they also work in consultation with the business. Change managers, in a way, are a little bit like a spider in the web. They need to be connected to everyone in lots of different departments and be in the know and really the centre focus of pulling everything together. So managing stakeholders and relationships in the business is actually critical to this role and really in any change role. Change managers will use a variety of approaches. So you might be familiar with Agile, so that is an iterative process. They're short, sharp sprints of small pieces of change that are done, or there's a more structured or waterfall approach, and that will then follow a sequence over time. And they use that to define, plan, and implement the change. And to do that, you really need to understand who is impacted, how they are impacted, and how to make this a lasting change. And then the hard work starts. You have to actually roll that out. Another key concept that the change team looks at is what's in it for me. Now, I don't mean what's in it for me personally or for the change person. This is all about the person impacted. So what's going to be the incentive for them to adopt the change? Why should they do it? And that's really critical to try and understand, because that's your selling point. If there's no real incentive for them, then why should they do it? And therefore, you can be met with resistance. And that sometimes is the case. There's not always a huge benefit for the changes that are being implemented, but the key is to try and find that. As assistants, you will have no doubt been asked, or you may be going to get asked, to get involved in some change projects in the business. Now, the reason is that in your role, you are a person of influence. You're someone that people come to for help and information, someone they rely on, and you're probably the source of what's going on in the business. You are the person in the know. So if others see that you support the change, then they are more likely to want to support it too. So the change team may come to you and ask you to be involved as what we would call a change agent within a change network. And that would be to help with those that are impacted by the change. So it involves attending regular meetings or calls to hear more about the project, so you can really understand what's going on, what will be different, and also what stays the same. And it's a chance for you to make that connection and to ask any questions that you'd like to know ahead of time and before everyone else gets to find out. Or the other situation could be that your boss might ask you to help out on a project, and you might be wondering, well, how am I going to run a change program or change project when I'm not trained as a change manager? Now, I can't teach you everything that I've learned in the time that we've got today, but I am going to give you a few key pointers that will set you off in the right direction. And I'll use two examples that are quite relevant at the moment to try and help explain what I mean. The first example is one I'm sure we're all too familiar with by now, and that is working from home. COVID-19 means that we've had to rethink the way that we work, and there wasn't much time to adapt. It had to happen really quickly, almost overnight, and this caught many businesses off guard, and it's a major change for employees too. And we actually don't yet know how long we'll be in this situation for, and that uncertainty can be really unsettling. In change, the key categories that we consider when we're assessing the impact of a change is people, process, and technology. So if you've been asked to support people to work from home, these are a few of the things to consider. If we go through those categories, starting with people, how will working from home impact the culture in your organisation? How will people's routines change? Will there be that difference between the working day and the home life? What's that new work-life balance? What does that look like? And how will they continue to be productive and stay motivated if they're working in isolation at home or potentially distracted by other family members that are around or housemates? And on the flip side, how can they stay connected to the team? And also, what are the new expectations of employees now? If we think about process, does this change anything about your business processes? Those are the way that things are done. How will remote teams now be managed? Do you need more regular check-ins? On the technology front, does everyone have a secure laptop that they can use from home? If not, where can you get them from? And also, how will they be delivered or collected? And also, will they need some other items? Will they need a screen, a mouse, a stand, a desk? And then in terms of tools, do they have all the online collaboration tools that they need? Does everyone actually know how to use them? And there are quite a few out there, but some examples might be Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Google Hangout. It's one thing to have them, but it's an entirely different thing to know how to use them. Now, those are just a couple of ideas, and I think the really important thing is that you'll need to consider this in the context of your organisation. So depending on the size of the organisation that you're working with, depending on how open they are to change, and also what the current situation is. So do you already work from home, or was this something new that was introduced recently? All of these factors will then lead to see what the outcome looks like for you, and that could be very different from one business to the next. The second example then is about returning to work. So the workforce is currently at home. What does that plan look like for having people return to work? Organisations will currently be considering what the future of work looks like, and also when that change will occur. Will they have people working from home permanently? Will they ask people to come into the office again? Or is there maybe a hybrid model, a little bit of both, or somewhere in between? So the first thing to do would be for you to understand what the decision is that the business has made. And then you can look at that in practical terms. And again, it's helpful to consider using the same categories as before and thinking about the impact in terms of the people, process, and technology. So I'll run through a couple of thought starters for you with this example as well. So people, if they're returning to work, can they all turn up at the same time? Is there still a 9 to 5, or do you need to stagger their start and finish times? How will people know where others are located and what their office days are? Is this maybe a spreadsheet calendar, or is it an email signature that you'll ask people to include their days in the office? What does the new employee experience look like? Will social gatherings be allowed? And where can people get support if they need it? It can be really overwhelming to make huge changes, and just as you're getting used to working from home, Now you're being asked to return to work. So it's really important to have that support there so that people can reach out. Process then. Will business travel be allowed? International as well as domestic? Can visitors come into the office? What does that process look like? And how will training now be offered? Can it still be face-to-face? Has it all moved online? And then in the building, where are the entry and exit points? What are the cleaning requirements? And will the capacity of meeting rooms now change? Lastly then, technology. The consideration here is really, can people still work at different sites? Can they have flexible desks, or will they be given a dedicated workstation? Then, more broadly, for both examples, as well as that change plan, you would look at the communications plan. How often, what, and when will you be communicating? Who's going to draft these messages or town hall talking points? Who's going to approve them and who's going to deliver them? And then from a training perspective, what does that plan look like? Are there any how-to documents or frequently asked questions that you could pull together? Maybe any short video tutorials that you could link to? And then how will you collect feedback on what is and isn't working? Now, this is only a very brief overview, but I hope that it has got you thinking and that you'll be able to apply some of these things in your role or organisation.